Thank you. Everybody hear me okay? No. How about now? See what I can do to get it. Anyway, hi, I'm David Smith. A little bit about me. I'm an information security officer at Georgetown University. Real close. We've been in the news lately. Hopefully you're not responsible for that. I'm a co-owner of HCP Forensic Services, and my background is in computer science. So I'm going to have actually some programming and a little bit of math. So don't run out of the room screaming. Last year I overheard a conversation about the NSA using image analysis to recover passwords. And I thought it was really intriguing. Does anybody know where that came from? I'm not sure if it was a speech or if I just overheard somebody talking about it. But if you do, feel free to shout it out. And the idea of it is that your passwords are buried inside of your computer. You type it in, you mistype it, it gets in a swap space, whatever. And then all you really need to do is pull it out and just use it as a giant dictionary. So you're not brute forcing, your way through an encryption or a system, but you're just simply using it as a giant dictionary. So I sat actually on the plane ride back, and I thought, is this idea feasible? And what can you do? And I started thinking of where are all the places that your password could inadvertently end up. Core dumps, swap space, memory dumps, deleted temp files, Slack space, internet histories, all that. And I was pretty amazed that when I actually did a little bit of work at that, how many I actually found. It was kind of scary, actually. But the biggest one, believe it or not, is that you typed your password in your username, and that went right into your log saying, user password 1 failed to log in at this time or that time. Pardon me. And also, it's kind of, as we get worse and worse application programs out there and we're finding all these weird things, it's the better for this attack vector. So anything that has, temp files that it writes out, and, it's crazy. People are writing MD5 hashes of all kinds of crazy things that you can just dig up later. So I really thought, hey, this is a feasible idea. And then I first went out and said, what else is out there? Where are we going to find, who's doing this right now? It's a pretty cool idea. I can't believe that the NSA is the only people doing this. And I didn't really find a lot. I found a distributing computing PAN module, Perl module, that looked pretty good, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It didn't have any expressions. I couldn't go and remove all the same strings from every image analysis that I found or image that I found. And it really I didn't find anything. And if you know something, throw a ball at me and be sure to tell me. But hopefully I didn't waste a lot of time doing this. But, I decided to elaborate on it a little bit. It would kind of pass feasibility, and I was pretty excited about the idea. So I started thinking, okay, what do you have to do? You have to have a target length. And then I want to score strings on entropy and readability and complexity and then password profiles. But more importantly, your images contain the same text over and over and over and over. It's all the HTML pages that you have in your cache and this and that. And I wanted to just remove those right away. So every program that has the word symbolic link, I know that's not your password. So it's kind of, I'm thinking that there's going to be a ton of data that exists. And when I try to pull all the strings out of your image, and then how am I really going to turn that into something usable? Kind of string extraction on the 2 projects that I did find, they were doing it very differently. They were worried about Unicode and how to pull those out, but I just pretty much went with the strings concept, where they're able to determine some of these things, and then it looks and it makes sense. But length was the big one, because the way I built my Perl scripts, and that's how it started. I'm going to go to a second version that's going to be written in C, and it's going to be a little bit faster probably. But it was how many, I have to actually do them individually. So the thing you really want to do is, this is a last-ditch effort if you want to do something like this. And I've already posted my Perl scripts for kind of phase 1 or version 1. But use your brute force and your rainbow tables to just take care of everything, first. So if you've got an int hash or whatever, I don't even want to know what you got. But go ahead and do your brute force and your rainbow tables first. You know that when you start them up, if you've got like an 8-month wait time, you're going to want to start looking at something else while you're waiting on that 8 months. But then more importantly, I started thinking about how many strings is that really going to be. So if I've got a 60 gig drive and I pull out 40 gigs of strings, well, for every time I want to make a 7-letter password, I put a little algorithm in there, it's going to be a lot. If it's a 10-letter, in this case, I'm taking a 10-letter or 10-number string, and then I'm saying how many 7-letter strings can I get out of that? And it's 4. So I started taking those things into consideration. How much bigger will my string list or my possible password list be compared to every string that I pull out of an image? And that's really what I'm trying to get around here, which is, how can I score them or how can I extract them in a way? So I actually did a little bit of study. When I pulled memory images, I had a few on file, and I had a few that I went out and did, but I started stripping strings out, and as you'd imagine on a memory image, there were a lot. It wasn't a lot, excuse me, it was about 10% of the total, and I had this nice 204 example here, where I pulled out 24 megabytes of strings. And sure enough, all my Google passwords and just all kinds of stuff that I was on the web was in there. As you would imagine, it's clear text in your memory if you can grab it, or you can grab somebody else's, or if I had an inopportune Dr. Watson that's just sitting on my disk, or whatever, a core file. But then disk image is a little bit different. I found out it was a 55% to 80% case where it was just strings. So I didn't have as many binaries. And then creating passwords, right? So I'm having to do that where I'm taking, like, in my case, I did 8 to 10 for most of them, for most of the tests that I did. It was a 400% increase. So if I had, in this case, 62 gigs of strings, and that equaled 238 gigs of passwords. And that's a lot. That's something that I'm not going to run through any kind of brute force dictionary or anything like that, or just a dictionary, or John the Ripper, or anything like that. Any questions so far? I know I'm moving pretty fast. I'm always worried about time, and I want to answer questions, but feel free. Yes. Yep, I'm making the assumption that you brute force, say up to 8, and then you start with 8, and then you're going to go to 9, and then you're going to go to 10, or something like that. I actually start to break it out a little bit, at least in this version. I think in the next version I'll be able to be a little bit more dynamic, but I really think that when you have this, say, 62 gigs of strings, that you have to say, what sides am I going to try to pull out first. I talk a little bit about where I'm going with that, and it's coming right up, but kind of the things that I'm going over here are the score, and in this case length, and then I'm going to score. But give me a second to come back to that, but I think it's going to be answered a little bit better. Entropy. Hopefully everybody knows what this is. It's the measure of disorder, randomness in a closed system. Most of us are familiar with the entropy of information. So of course I pull some things out here. It looks really scary, but it's not. I just want to avoid having a very simplistic password and actually checking that password. I don't want to score that high. I don't want to keep it. I don't even want to look at it. I do want Smoocon Rocks, however, as a dictionary word, because that could be a password. Nice and long and everything, too. So here's a Perl script that I wrote to actually get my entropy, and I gave some examples. So this kind of really spells it out. This is the percentage, or I'm sorry, a indicator of how random that, in this case, that string is. So obviously the AA3, it's 0.4, and then I get some capital letters and some exclamation points, and kind of go nice and long, and lots of O's in there, but anyway, I get a little over 3. So that's kind of the entropy. That's one of the things I want to do to say, is this a good password or is this just junk? Because I really don't want 238 gigabytes of junk to actually go. Readability is the second one, right? How do people create passwords? I know there's I think it's Matt Weir's doing a password analysis, or how people choose passwords, and I had done some of the same stuff. I started up with some basic strategies. I of course, I actually listed some of my sources down there. I think cool, you can read it. But, Schneier and all these reports exist. But most people use dictionary words of sports teams, colors, music groups, all kinds of fun stuff. And supposedly we're getting smarter, whereas in the 70s and 80s, all the studies said, oh, it's just a word, right? It's a dictionary word. Now we're actually putting numbers at the end. So when you look at all the stuff from nowadays, and more specifically the MySpace compromise, or the MySpace phishing page, where everybody in the world apparently pulled down 20,000 passwords, and they all did some analysis. And I want to think it was last summer, or maybe the summer before, but I remember hearing about it, and it wasn't until later that I saw this analysis come out from like Newsweek and everywhere else in the world. But that was the one thing they learned, was that people really aren't doing any better with passwords. They're just adding a number to the end. I also thought a way that people build passwords is to take it and put 2 words together with some numbers. And that's kind of from the analysis I've seen over time. The next one, I love this. People use quotes. I think it's a good way to go. All the good things must come to an end. You probably have heard of this scheme. In mine, I like this one. I came up with this years ago. It's my half-dead monkey died of Wigan. Can anybody guess what that is? What that indicates as a mnemonic for something? Anyway, I want to think back in the 80s. I came up with a mnemonic for Crontab, and it's minute, hours, days, months, day of the week. So my half-dead monkey died of Wigan. I thought it was pretty funny at the time. Me and my friends were like laughing around and stuff like that. But the other thing is you're seeing a lot of license plate and a lot of just leet speak. So, of course you've got your cute girl and you've got the mad skills. But the point is all of your frequency analysis is going to work. So if I can rate passwords or something on a password that has a lot of the English, because I'm going for English passwords, but it has a lot of the English character frequencies, number frequencies, then that's what I want to do. Of course, complexity is your kind of password groups that we're familiar with. So it's uppercase, lowercase, numbers, alphanumeric. I actually love this. I was going through and I started building passwords, and I'd love to have registered trademark in my password. But anyway, these